Admin. Head of the Department of Business Administration, Dr. Hari Susanta Nugraha, SOS, MSE. Chair of the Short Course Program 2025, Mrs. Anis Komaria, SAB, MLIN. Distinguished lecturers, speakers, all committee members, and all participants whom we take pride in. Today, we are gathered for the 2025 Business Administration Short Course with the theme Regenerative Community Tourism, Designing Impact-Driven Models for Culture, Climate, and Circular Economy. This annual program, organized by the Department of Business Administration Universitas Diponegoro, serves as an academic and practical platform to explore innovative strategies in community-based tourism, in a strong focus on regeneration. Throughout the session, participants will learn about how tourism can not only preserve cultural heritage ecosystem and local economies, but also regenerate them and create positive impacts for both community and environment from international institutions. Therefore, the 2025 short course is not only learning opportunity, but also a collaborative international forum designed to shape a new generation of tourism leaders innovative, critical, and committed to advancing sustainability and regeneration. On behalf of the organizing committee, I am honored to serve as your master of ceremony to guide you through today's agenda. To begin our program, let's us respectfully sing the national anthem of Indonesia together, Indonesia Raya. And now we proceed to the welcome address to be delivered by the chairperson of Short Course 2025, Mrs. Anis Komaria, SAB, MLIN. Mrs. Anis, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, Moti. Good afternoon, distinguished Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Dr. Anjas Teguh Empol Admin, Honorable Head of the Department of Business Administration, Dr. Hari Susanta Nugraha, MSE, our esteemed speakers from Indonesia and abroad, distinguished colleagues and respected participants. It is a great honor for me as chairperson of the organizing committee to extend my warm greetings and to present a brief report on the implementation of International Short Course 2025 with the theme of Regenerative Community Tourism, designing impact-driven model for culture, climate, and the circular economy. This program is organized by Department of Business Administration, Faculty of Social Political Science, Universitas Diponegoro, and is scheduled from 10 September to 10 October 2025, consisting of 11 online academic sessions. For this short course, we are privileged to host 11 distinguished speakers who are recognized experts in the field of regenerative tourism, and they consist of 7 international speakers, 2 national speakers, and 2 practitioners, ensuring a balanced exchange between global perspectives, Indonesian insights, and practical field experience. And we are especially honored to welcome Dr. Anna Spenceley, former chair of the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas, Tourism and Protected Area Specialist Group, an international expert network focusing on sustainable tourism in protected areas. Dr. Spenceley will lead the opening session of the short course and set the tone for our collective exploration of regenerative approaches in tourism. I am also pleased to report that more than 50 participants from over 15 countries have registered for this program, and they represent a broad spectrum of educational level from diploma to doctoral studies, and professional backgrounds, including lecturers, researchers, consultant practitioners, entrepreneurs, and graduate students. This diversity reflects the international scope of the programs and creates a unique opportunity for collaboration and mutual learning across the disciplines and professional. Finally, on behalf of the committee, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Andes Teguh Yuwono, MPhil Admin, as the Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Science, and to Dr. Hari Susanto Nugroho, MSc, as Head of the Department of Business Administration for their continuous guidance and support. I also extend my sincere appreciation to our distinguished speakers, the organizing team, and all participants who have joined this program. It is our hope that this short course will run smoothly, achieve its objective, and foster lasting collaboration among participants and speakers in advancing regenerative tourism that benefits both people and the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Anis, for the brief report. And next, we will hear the welcoming speech from the head of the Department of Business Administration, Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Diponegoro, Dr. Hari Susanta Nugraha, SOS, MSc. Dr. Hari,
Okay,
the screen
thank
is
you.
yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mutia, and thank you all the participants. Honorable the Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Science, and distinguished speakers, dear all the participants of the short course, and ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for your presence and participation in the opening ceremony of 2025 short course that is organized by the Department of Business Administration, Universitas Diponegoro. It is great pleasure that we gather today to embark on a journey and address the critical challenge of global tourism industry. That must be the interesting topics, I think. Yeah. This year, the theme is Regenerative Community Tourism, design impact-driven models for culture, climates, and circular economics. Reflect our shared commitment to contribute the development tourism that is not only brings the economic benefit, but also support social and environment sustainability. In a phase of climate crisis and the growing complexity of social issues, we are called upon to think of critical and develop the solution that's not only endure but also regenerate the resource and cultures of the whole year. Yeah. As a part of Faculty of Social and Political Science, we are committed to nurturing the next generation of leaders who are not only adept at addressing the complexity of tourism, but also uh, attitude to the broader social, political, and environments of our times. The 2020 short course is designed to equip the participant with the knowledge skill needed to develop regenerative tourism and contribute positive on communities, culture, and environment. Though it, of course, we aim to foster the deeper understanding of the intersection between tourism, social dynamics, and sustainable development. Yeah. Lastly, uh, I would like to express my deep appreciation to all those who support this organization event, especially uh, my honorable deans of Faculty of Social and Political Science, Diponegoro University, for their trust and continued support. I hope this program will enrich all of us and trust the participant for the most this opportunity to explain their knowledge and build valuable network for the future. With that, it is my great honor to officially declare that 2025 short course of Department of Business Administration. It will be opened by Dean of FISIP Universitas Diponegoro. I wish all you successful and fruitful experience throughout this event. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hari, for the warm, inspiring speech. Now, we invite the Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Diponegoro, Dr. Andus Teguh Yuwono, MPol Admin, to deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Dean, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mutia, Ibu Bapak. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, Hirobbil Alamin. La hawla wa la quwata illa billah. First of all, I would like to say thank you and my great appreciation to all the participants. Also, special thanks to the Department of Business Administration, who already, I think, very successfully prepared and execute these important things of short course. And I would like to appreciate and say thank you to Head of Business Department, Associate Pak Dr. Hari Susanto, and then also the chairperson, Mbak Anis, for preparing this international event, which is, I think, very important to provide more opportunity to everybody in the international context and development in order to know each other, sharing academic background and experience. Of course, on behalf of the faculty, I would like to say thank you as well to all the native speakers, all the speakers who coming from international organization, international university, as well as from Universitas Diponegoro from Indonesia, as already reported by Mbak Anis. I think special thanks to Prof. Bulan and also some experts from the Department of Business Administration who also willing to be one of the speaker. And I do hope all the students across the countries that I think Mbak Anis already mentioned in the report of the committee. As I think you know, now Faculty of Social and Political Sciences is very keen to promote and to collaborate in international level, not only in terms of some subject, but also almost covering all part of social sciences and political sciences. In the same time, I think we have many guests now from many different part of worlds, like from Europe, from America, from US, from Philippines, from Malaysia, from many part of Indonesia now. They are actively participating in our international and global perspective. We also appreciate it for everybody who develop and assist our national and international network. Once again, Pak Hari and all the lecturers of the Department of Business Administration, we are very happy and I'm very truly appreciate for your seriousness and also for your activities during providing for I think several weeks or several days as reported by head of committee. So every participant short course, which is I see I think the what do you call it, the themes, the topic is very interesting. When you are talking about tourism, there are many aspects of tourism which is related to economy, also related to social and cultural aspect, as well as related to environmental and development. So once again, hope this will contribute to our strong contribution to the Universitas Diponegoro. So everybody will take part in the process of internationalization of our university. On behalf of the faculty, by asking to God, the Almighty, and by speaking Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, this short course is open formally. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so
you,
much,
Pak
Mr.
Dean.
Dean,
Thank
for
you,
your
Dean.
valuable
Yeah.
remarks. And the opening statement
Thank
from
you,
the
thank
Dean
you.
is officially open this event. However, before we start our main event, we will take a documentation first. And I hope all participants can turn on their cameras till I wait for a minute. Okay, then I'll take the documentation in 3, 2. Okay, open your camera, guys. I'll take the documentation in 3, 2, 1. Give your smile. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Before we start our session, let me read the rules that we need to be obeyed by the participants, okay? First, please turn off your microphone when the speakers start the session. And then, the second is to ask question, use raise hand in Zoom. Priority will be given to those who use this feature. Or send your question in the chat box, okay? And then the third is certificate will be awarded to participants who attended at least 7 sessions and complete the final assignment. For any technical issues or questions regarding the event, please post them in WhatsApp group for immediate assistance. And ladies and gentlemen, we now begin this session. Allow me introduce our moderator, Mr. Ardi. Mr. Ardi is distinguished lecturer and researcher at Universitas Diponegoro, with a PhD in management. He specializes in digital marketing, business research, and innovation, and also the founder of the Idea Library. Without further ado, let us welcome Mr. Ardi. Hello, Mr. Ardi, how are you?
Okay, good afternoon. I'm good, Mutiara.
Okay, I want to ask how excited are you to be a moderator today?
Yes, I'm really excited to be a moderator today as our speakers has a really interesting background. So yes, I'm very excited to guide the discussion for today's session.
Okay. Without further ado, I'll give this the screen for you as a moderator. The screen is yours, Mr. Adi.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank the MC for the kind introductions. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first session of our short course on regenerative community tourism. My name is Ardi Wibowo. I'm a lecturer at the Department of Business Administration at Universitas Diponegoro, and I will be your moderator for today's sessions. Now I'm very excited to introduce our speakers, Dr. Anna Spenceley. Dr. Anna, are you here?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Nice
Okay, it's great to have you with us today. How are you, Dr. Spenceley?
I'm very well today, thank you. Joining you from
Okay.
sunny Cornwall in England.
Okay. So I know that you work in many different countries based on your CV that I've read before. But it's interesting to know that where are you joining us from today?
In the UK, in
Oh, you are
Cornwall.
in the UK. Okay. Yes, we are very honored to have Dr. Anna Spenceley with us. She is a well-known expert in sustainable tourism and has worked in over 30 countries, helping to improve tourism in ways that also to protect the nature and support local communities. And she is a founder of STAN, that it stands for Spenceley Tourism and Development, I think, and a company that focuses on sustainable development and tourism and also conservation. And Dr. Spenceley has held important roles in global organizations, including being a chair of IUCN, World Commission of Protected Areas, for many years. And also she has written several books and articles on tourism and conservation. Today, Dr. Spenceley will be sharing her thoughts in rethinking sustainability from responsible to regenerative tourism, focusing on how tourism can help both the environment and local communities. Please feel free if you have any questions, and or you can drop your comments or question in the comment section or in the chat box, and then I will help to guide the discussion and ensure that we have an engaging and productive experience. Now, I will hand it to Dr. Anna Spenceley for her presentation. Please, Dr. Spenceley, time is yours.
Great, thank you very much, Ardi. I'm going to try and share my slides. Sorry, could you give me permission to share, please?
Yeah, you already share your screen.
There's somebody else's sharing.
Yes, we can share. We can see your screen, Dr. Anna.
I think it's somebody else's screen.
Yes. Somebody help you to share the screen. Or you want to share by yourself? Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Oh,
Can you see
sorry.
the slides? Okay?
Wait me a second. I think I cannot see your screen.
Cannot see the slide.
Yes.
That's unusual. Sorry, you might have to go back to you sharing the slides if it's not going to work from my side. I just thought it would go faster if I could do it.
Okay. Or if you mind, we can help you to share the screen. Dr. Spencer. Oh yeah, yes, perfect. Oh,
Is it working now?
It's gone.
Is it working now?
No, we cannot see your screen, your slides. Sorry. If you mind, we can help you from here. So we can share from here.
Yeah, if you don't mind to share the slides from your side.
Can you please, committee or maybe MC, can you share the screen for Dr. Spencer? Yes, thank you, operators. So the operators share the screen for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Maybe later you just say next if you want to move to another slide.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So it's a real pleasure to be here for this session, and very thanks to Anis and the university for asking me to join your short course. I've been asked to speak about rethinking sustainability from responsible to regenerative tourism. Next slide, please. The presentation will be in three main parts, talking about the interesting journey, the transition of terminology from sustainable through to regenerative. We'll also discuss green claims, and I have some questions for you to think about too. And then there should be some time for discussion afterwards. If there are any comments or questions, I'd love to hear from all the participants here today. Next, please. So we'll start by talking about the transition of terminology. Next, please. There's no single definitive timeline for the transition between these terms, sustainable, responsible, and regenerative in the tourism industry. There's sort of been a gradual evolving shift in mindset over time that began with sustainable tourism concepts in the late 20th century and moved into responsible tourism practices, and now has moved more into a regenerative approach in recent years. And this shift has seen fundamental changes from a perspective of do less harm through acting responsibly towards actively improving ecosystems, communities, and economies with the goal of leaving net positive impacts. Next, please. So first we look at sustainable tourism, which is defined as tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, environment, and host communities. Next slide, please. So the basis of sustainable tourism comes from the Brundtland Commission's report, Our Common Future, and the definition of sustainable development, which is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So the concept was applied to tourism and many other sectors as well, of course, and also has been applied to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We saw the emergence of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which was developed to try and establish a global baseline of what sustainable looks like. Next, please. So what we can do is map all of the Sustainable Development Goals against tourism. Tourism is explicitly stated within 3 of the SDGs, 8, 12, and 14. And WTO and others have organized mapping of the SDGs against tourism. So to give you some examples, next please. Many tourism operations actively promote poverty reduction, decent work and economic growth, including this example of a community-owned lodge in South Africa. Next, please. There are also examples of community-owned tourism enterprises where female empowerment and education is emphasized, including with recruitment, training, and advancement. Next, please. And their efforts to support clean water and sanitation for communities in destination areas, including at this lodge in Mozambique. Next, please. Now, environmental management systems and independent certification systems have been used to help companies demonstrate verifiably that they're responsible consumption and production. And in turn, online booking platforms like Booking.com, Expedia, Google, and other travelist partners are increasingly helping travelers to find sustainable tourism destinations, hotels, and tours that have confirmed their sustainability claims. And community-based tourism enterprises can obviously access these market channels. Some certifications like Fair Trade Tourism actively focus on making things easier for smaller enterprises to become certified. And many land-based enterprises actively support nature conservation and habitat restoration and combat wildlife crime. For example, in Mozambique, this lodge created a 225,000 community conservation area with agreements with 16 communities to regulate the land use and stop poaching. Next, please. So to help the industry and travelers understand sustainable tourism better, the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which I mentioned earlier, develops and manages GSTC standards, which are global standards for sustainable travel and tourism. And the GSTC also provides international accreditation for sustainable tourism certification bodies which conform to these standards and operate good processes. So this means that you know that when companies, destinations, conference facilities and attractions have been certified under accredited programs, that they have proven that they are sustainable. Next, please. So the GSTC standards fall under 4 themes: sustainability management, social and economic, enhancing cultural heritage, and also reducing negative impacts to the environment. So they're very comprehensive. Next, please. And these standards and the criteria within them have been mapped against all of the SDGs. So you can be assured that if you are implementing these criteria and the standards in full, then the SDGs are also being tackled and you're contributing towards sustainable development. Next, please. So that's an overview of sustainable tourism. So next came a movement towards responsible tourism. Next, please. So this came from a practical approach about taking responsibility for making tourism more sustainable. And it was about making destinations better for the communities that live there and who host visitors. So driven by Professor Harold Goodwin and grounded in the Cape Town Declaration that was crafted by him and Dr. Mike Fabricius, there are now an array of books, there are World Responsible Tourism Awards and centres for responsible tourism across the world. However, the international arena has generally kept to the concept of sustainable, partially perhaps because it's grounded in UN research and principles and agreements and declarations, and the term responsible hasn't really taken off as much as we would have hoped it could have done, including in South Africa, where the term really originated. And despite that, responsible tourism still is being promoted at world travel markets by the centres and largely in parallel with sustainable tourism approaches. Next, please. And now we have a new transition to regenerative tourism, which again shifts the emphasis. It's not about just sustaining things, it's about enhancing and improving. Next, please. So the concept is really about actively improving ecosystems, communities, and economies, and generating a net positive impact. And this emphasis has emerged during the COVID pandemic. There's been increased academic interest in it. There's been a mindset shift towards doing things more positively, not just sustainably. And it's also about action. It's about trying to galvanize travelers and operators into actually doing positive things. Next, please. So some useful models have emerged to help us understand this shift and compare it with earlier terminology, including this model from New Zealand from Professor Suzanne Becken, simply saying that it's tourism that gives more than it takes. And another from Sarah Donlikar, comparing sustainable and regenerative outcomes of tourism. So we can look at some example of regenerative approaches. Next, please. So here at this lodge in South Africa, next slide, please. This lodge in South Africa, nearly 30,000 hectares of cattle farming and exotic tree species farmlands were converted to natural habitats and restocked with 15,000 head of game. And the efforts have been so successful that they've been able to repopulate other protected areas across Africa and also Asia with animals including cheetah, lion, buffalo, white rhino. And visitors can participate in rhino, pangolin, and elephant conservation during their trips. Next, please. Then in Rwanda, we have Basati Lodge, where an extensive reforestation program was established. And along with an indigenous tree nursery, over 100,000 trees have been planted since 2015, and invasive eucalyptus species have been removed. And this has expanded the amount of habitat available around the Volcanoes National Park, which is inhabited by endangered mountain gorillas. Next, please. And on the marine side, in Tanzania, there's the Chumbe Island Coral Park, which gazetted a marine protected area in the area. And its reef sanctuary has become one of the most pristine coral reefs in the region, with over 500 fish species and 200 species of hard coral identified, and one of the last undisturbed semi-arid coral rag forests in Zanzibar. Next, please. So that's an overview of regenerative. So I want to talk a bit about green claims and establishing whether we know something is regenerative or not. Next, please. So as we're all aware, greenwashing is a big problem for travelers. And this is where companies may make false claims about their sustainability or responsibility or regenerative actions. So, for example, a company might say that it has halved its carbon emissions, but it provides no supporting evidence to that. So how do we trust it? This is something that the EU has been grappling with. Next slide, please. We also see that there's a lack of trust in sustainability labels and also in the claims of sustainability that are made on online booking platforms. Customers are confused. The tourism industry, there are hundreds and hundreds of tourism certification labels, and these are just a few of them. Next, please. So the forthcoming Green Claims Directive from the EU will mean that tourism companies will need to justify any claims of sustainability that they make in their marketing, including one of the mechanisms to do this will be through certification by third parties. So not just self-reporting their claims. So if this directive is passed, the environmental claims that are made by companies would need to be subject to strict substantiation requirements. And crucially, the process would ensure that member states can fine companies up to 4% of their profits and even bar them from public procurement if they make unsupported environmental claims. And this will not only affect companies that are based in the EU, but all of the enterprises that they market and promote in their itineraries, whether it's a community-based tourism in Indonesia or a multinational hotel in Paris. So it's not just affecting Europe, it's all of the enterprises that are promoted to European travelers. Next slide, please. So the GSTC explains in this model different levels of assurance that can be provided to confirm and validate any sustainability or regenerative claims. So the first, at the bottom, we start with 0, which is no certification or verification. A first-party assessment would mean that an individual or organization is offering an assurance or a claim that it meets certain environmental standards. So it might be a company saying, I'm recycling or I am sustainable. The second-party verification is where an association that the individual or enterprise might belong to that provides that assurance on its behalf. So they could create a quality mark for a certain market segment. Third-party certification involves a fully independent assessment, declaring that specified requirements have been met. And those requirements may have been independently drawn up by experts. And then the highest level would be where a certification body has been accredited, for example, by GSTC or by ISEAL or another accreditation body. And this means that the body is providing a sound and transparent and competent process as well. Okay, next slide, please. So, but now let's look at community-based tourism, which is the theme of this training. So as you all know, so community-based tourism in a nutshell, they're usually located within a community, sometimes on communal land or on land that is owned by the community. They might be owned, the enterprises might be owned by one or more community members, so it might be a small enterprise. And it might be managed collectively by community members too. And there are 4 different main ways in which communities can be involved in these tourism enterprises. So they may own the enterprise, they may be involved in a joint venture with the private sector, they may be a small business, or they may be benefiting from procurement contracts with private businesses. Next, please. But as we know from numerous case studies globally and research papers, there are many, many challenges that are faced by community-based enterprises and for their participation in tourism. And in my experience, I've seen this particularly where a community enterprise has been established by a very well-meaning non-governmental organization. The challenges might include that they have limited access to cheap capital because they can't get equity for loans. The infrastructure they have access to in their facilities and access infrastructure may be low. There may be weak education and literacy, a lack of understanding of tourism and the tourism sector and the whole value chain of tourism. Skills may be limited, particularly around business skills, and it can be difficult for them to market their tourism enterprises because of a lack of equipment and tools and knowledge. So some of the biggest challenges I've seen with CBT are when there's been this kind of build and they will come attitude, that somebody will build a community enterprise and just assume that travelers are going to come and visit it, but it's more complicated than that. Next, please. So now I have some questions for you to think about during this course, and particularly in relation to the different types of CBT models and the challenges that those enterprises face. So firstly, next slide, please. My first question to you: how would a community-based enterprise establish that it was regenerative? How are they going to adequately demonstrate this in order to address legislation like the Green Claims Directive and take advantage of being promoted in European markets? What indicators are they going to use? And how are they going to do their monitoring and reporting and validation? Are they going to need training to do this? And then ultimately, does it make sense for them to do this, or do they have other priorities that they need to focus on? Does it really add much value to their enterprise and to their sales if they call themselves regenerative? Next, please. My second question: how do we decide which of these terms is correct? We have these three definitions. They're all good, they're all useful, they've all been productive, they're all working basically in parallel with each other. Which one do we apply? So over the past 20 odd years that I've been working on sustainable tourism, I've done case studies on enterprises that when we started assessing them, the terminology we were using was pro-poor, and we used sustainable, and we used responsible, and we used inclusive, and we used nature positive, and now regenerative. So these enterprises may have been working in a regenerative fashion for 20 to 30 years, but academics are only calling it that now. So is actually anything changing? How do we know what this transition is between them? So we see how the academic sector pivots, sometimes depending on what's new and trendy, sometimes depending on where the funding is coming from for their work and what terms they need to integrate into their proposals in order to secure that money. So are these terms interchangeable? Are they? Because they're all good, right? So I'm going to show you a few examples. Next slide, please. And I want to ask you what you think. This is an example of a community-based enterprise in Uganda. It's a company that operates climbing tours in the Ruwenzori Mountains for visitors. It's owned by members of the community. They provide employment and local benefits. They've had problems with financial management in the past, but how do I decide if this is operating sustainably or responsibly, or is it regenerative? How do I know? Next, please. This one is a women's association next to Queen Elizabeth Park in Uganda. They have an MOU with the Wildlife Authority to collect elephant dung from the park, which they use to make paper. They employ local women. They're working on supporting local communities, including local orphans, but they have challenges in actually selling their products and getting it to market. So are they sustainable or responsible or regenerative, or all three? Next, please. And a final example, I really like this program here at Murchison Falls. There was an initiative called Wares from Snares. So snares that had been used in poaching were collected together and they were transformed into these wire sculptures by artisans, and then they were sold overseas, and they generated quite a lot of money. And this has been going on for several years. So it's a highly impressive craft program. And it also helps deter youths from poaching because they're generating income from other sources. So is this sustainable? Is it regenerative? Is it responsible? Okay, next slide, please. The third question, importantly, who are these terms actually for? Are they for the visitors and tourists? And do they understand these terms? Are they going to make travel decisions based on these terms if they see something is labeled with one of these titles? And are they going to lead to a better experience when they travel there? Or are they for tourism operators? And do they know how to act sustainably, responsibly, or in a regenerative way? What tools and guidance is available to them? What are the costs involved in operating in this way? And where and how do they market these good practices validly? Or are they for the host communities and destinations? And are those destinations and communities, do they need to have enough information to be able to demand that operators working in their areas are working in this way to get the best outcome for them? Or perhaps rather cynically, are they just for academics and researchers who want to get their work published with the latest shiny new term? Next, please. And finally, my fourth question to you, what is the scope of application? Where are we focused? So if I say tourism is regenerative, are we looking at that tourism enterprise, say that community-based enterprise only, and regenerative actions that it is taking? Or are we looking at regenerative at a destination level? Are we looking at the whole protected area or a whole community, a whole province or region? Or are we looking across the whole journey, including from where the tourist starts their journey, their whole travel to get to a destination, and what they do when they get there? So, for example, if an enterprise is operating regeneratively, but all its visitors fly halfway across the world to get there and generate tons and tons of carbon dioxide in doing so, contributing to the climate emergency, is this really regenerative in a global context? So that's one of the questions that I would really like to see, to hear what you think about. Next, please. So I don't have the answers to the four questions. They're questions that I have. I'm always a bit skeptical about changes in terminology and about the motivation to do so. I think it's useful if it helps focus our attention in particular directions and it leads to an overall better product and a better deal for communities. Then I think it's useful. But I think we need to interrogate it and make sure that monitoring and evaluation is there to actually prove that these processes are taking place. Next, please. Okay, and so that in a nutshell is what I took on about this journey from responsible to regenerative tourism. I hope it was a useful summary, but I'm really interested to hear the thoughts from the people on this course and have any discussion you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spenceley. Okay, now we would like to open the floor if you have any question or comments, or you want to answer Dr. Spenceley questions, feel free to use raise hand feature in the Zoom. Please, anyone? Okay, anyone? Okay, the first one from Azmi. Can you open your mic and then directly?
Okay, so I want to ask, in Indonesia, we have a customary law tradition that prevents or forbids people from exploiting natural resources for a certain period of time in order to preserve them for future generations. So would this practice be considered part of regenerative tourism, or is it classified differently? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for question. So the terms that you used are included in the definition of sustainable tourism, being for future generations. But as I mentioned in my presentation, the operation might be having characteristics of responsible and regenerative as well. So that is the question, is to try and look at the enterprise in detail and try and define which of those terms is most applicable. Or you might find none of them are. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stansel.
Okay, thank you.
Any follow-up question for Asmi, or that's enough? Okay, for the next question is from, I think I cannot see your name, Galaxy Note 9. Okay. Please open your mic.
Hi.
And you may introduce
Hello.
yourself. Okay.
Hi, I'm Natalie Davenport. I'm in Bali in Indonesia. I also work with communities in Africa, in Ghana and Kenya. And it's just like a comment really about the regulatory side. I just have experience so far in like a little bit of like with fair trade with communities in Ghana. One particular one that produces shea butter. And the leader of that enterprise, who's a social worker in Ghana, just said how like fair trade regulations, like to apply for the certification for someone, for that group, is so expensive, because even though for us it's maybe $250 or something, for them that's like just out of the water, you know, it's out of this world, like to be able to afford that. So that in itself, that there is regulations that then comes, you know, kind of top down, or, you know, from a international board. I mean, even for organic certification as well, it can be very expensive for farmers to get that certification. So yeah, it was just a comment on like, you know, there has to be some kind of indicators or markers that can be presented where it doesn't cost the communities or enterprises themselves huge amounts of money to, you know, meet the standard or regulation, or to be able to comply. The whole compliance thing can be a bit daunting, I think. Aside from the time thing, I totally get the time thing as well, can be hard. But yeah, just in terms of it, there being a way for communities to show that, or, you know, enterprises to show that there is the regenerative benchmark there, or that there's criteria being met without them having to pay a lot to get the certification. I think that's really important.
Thank you. Yeah, these are really important points. So I did a review of certifications across Africa a few years ago, and it worked out like something like 3% of all tourism enterprises were actually certified. And some countries have offered free certification. So Botswana, Seychelles, Egypt, providing this service for free at no cost at all. So the $200 falls away. But still you find that people are not taking it up and becoming certified. So sometimes it's not just a barrier of the outlay costs, it's also the technical skills to do it. Maybe it's a very small enterprise and there's only one person managing it, and they've got to run the business, and then they've got to do all of this red tape for the certification too. So it can become quite difficult. There was one certification in South Africa that ran for a while called Qualitor, which used to offer the money back on the certification fee if the company did not see the same value in cost savings. So from the improvements in energy efficiency or reductions in water costs or whatever it was. So that kind of return on investment of those costs is really important. I think we still need to make the case that if you become certified, then you will see X amount of value in additional business or higher quality, or people staying longer, or something that is coming to you. And that's not there yet. But with the Green Claims Directive, it doesn't mean that the enterprise wouldn't be able to be marketed at all in European markets. It just means that the words that they would be using in their markets their marketing would not be permissible. So you wouldn't be able to say you were regenerative or sustainable or green or whatever unless you could justify it. So the language would need to change. That makes sense. But I don't think that there's, like in Ghana, there's a government-run program that offers it for free. I'm not aware of one. But they should talk to Fair Trade Tourism because they're very flexible. They're a really good organization. They have got discounted rates for smaller enterprises and things. And they really do want to help. I hope that helps a bit. Thank you. If I see Sonia has her hand up and she's very involved with GSTC and Fair Trade.
Yes,
So
Sonia, please, maybe you can directly answer.
Yes, I hear you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Sonia.
Hello, I'm Sonia. I'm based in Madagascar, so Indian Ocean. Yes, as a GSTC trainer, in fact, I appreciate that Anna took some of the slides of the GSTC training, who give a kind of picture of what GSTC is standing for. My question is about this terminology, is because it's terrible to see how many new trends are coming out. Especially for the moment, I'm thinking about meaningful tourism, and this is a new movement. And then we have conscious tourism by our friend Anna Pollock, and all kinds of, well, trends. It's difficult when you teach standards and criteria to convince or to sort out what I should really teach, because the terminology has no end. It seems to be, we're very creative in inventing new touristic trends, and it's really confusing also for the teaching and also for the consumers, and as well for the labels, because you get kind of lost. And some of them are even GSTC accredited. So my question is, or my thinking, let's say, is how can we, do you think, Anna, we should really restrict the terminology to these three concepts? I mean, to regenerative, sustainable, and responsible, or no, responsible, sustainable, responsible, and regenerative. And how can we handle these? How can we stop? Should we stop the creativity?
Yeah, I don't like to restrict anything. But I mean, I guess language changes, the way we use it. What we thought was a good way of looking things in the past changes. You know, like the pro-port tourism that I mentioned earlier, which you know, and that was all the rage for 10 years, and a whole range of papers and things were published on this topic, and it was great. And now it's kind of like, we can't say things are pro-port, so it's like, that's like almost offensive now to say that, you know, because the language has changed. And like I said, I think it's useful to change the emphasis and the way we're thinking if we're trying to promote something in particular, that whether it's net positive or regenerative or positive. And I think that's quite a useful shift from sustainable. I guess I'd always thought of sustainable as effectively being regenerative, but I understand that the definition is about just sustaining things. And if you're sustaining something from a baseline that's already damaged, then that's not very helpful. You need to try and improve it and rehabilitate it, which enterprises we're doing anyway. But no, I mean, I think I see it with different development agency projects I work on, with academia, with papers. People just like the new shiny term. They like to have ownership over it. They like to be, I'm the expert in this type of tourism, and they make their name on it, and they make their careers, and they get their professorships. So you can look at it as either a useful tool to focus our work, or a bit more cynically. But yeah, at the end of the day, does it make a difference to the communities on the ground, or are they just confused and they just want to operate a business and take home a paycheck and uplift their communities a bit? Is it really making a difference to them? And I think we need to focus the attention to that rather than what we call it.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Shubha. Dr. Spencer, I think we have a question in the chat box from Nahar. I will read for you. So, great presentation. Thanks, Dr. Spenceley. There is a thought that regeneration is an expression of sustainability, wherein sustainability aims or limits to maintain the status quo or net zero, whereas regeneration aims to make net positive benefit. What is your take on this approach? Thank you, Enrique. Dr. Muhammad Nahar from India. Can you answer this question, please, Dr. Spenceley?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nahar, for your question. Yes, I think you're right. It is an extension of sustainability. I think these three terms can be used in parallel along with many others as well. And sustainability, if you look at go back to the definition in the Brundtland report, it's about making sure that things are sustained in a way that future generations are not at a disadvantage. So that's the basis of where it comes from. So what we really do want to do is see improvements in things, whether it's the climate or biodiversity or culture, community upliftment. We do want to see a more positive approach. So then that term can be useful and valuable.
Yeah, okay. So is there any from participants, any questions or comments? There any participant want to ask something to Dr. Spenceley? We still have 10 minutes. Okay, Shafi will done. Please. Yes.
I have a question. What are the challenges that local communities face in tourism towards a regenerative tourism model, and what practical solutions can be implemented to overcome these obstacles? Thank you.
Thank you, Shafi, for your questions. Please,
Great.
Dr.
Thank you very much for the question. I think before even communities get towards operating in a regenerative approach, I think the biggest problems that they often have is actually establishing a business that works, one that actually attracts tourists, gives them a good experience, pays salaries of people, they can pay the producers, actually linking into a global value chain or even a local value chain. I think that's, even before they start working in a regenerative way, I think that is the biggest challenge that they have. The regenerative actions from enhancing the community or conservation are probably things that will come as a second priority, to be honest. Or they're things that be promoted by broader interests from whether it's government or donors or NGOs that are pushing in a particular direction. That's my personal opinion. But if you have different experience from things that you'd see, I'd love to hear about it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shafi, well done for your questions. Another question from Christian Palmer.
Yes. Hi, Anna. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
Yes.
Chris. How are you?
Hi. Very good. Thanks. My name is Chris from Swiss Contact Indonesia, right now based in Bali. And we are right now developing a concept for a regenerative hospitality food hub in Bali, like linking the local food supply chain to the hospitality sector. And we are planning to work with farming communities. The problem that I'm always having with, we have exactly the same problem of how do we call it from sustainable to regenerative. Then you want to have professionals and experts, but there's not so many I see it as highly critical if somebody is right now an expert in the regeneration, because it's quite new and there's so many terms flying around. It's a tricky situation. The question I have is, we are also like our net positive impact of thinking regeneratively should be actually within the communities. But I have the feeling that we are mostly talking about the communities and not talking with the communities. So it's like this ivory tower thing, right? Most of the companies or partners we work with have offices in Jakarta, where it's like a literal ivory tower. So my question would be, where is the anchor from your experience? How do you start working with the communities rather than speaking about them?
Thank you, Christian. And I really appreciate you coming from the side of having to grapple with all this terminology too. So I sympathize. So a while back, we wrote some guidelines for the International Trade Center of UNCTAD, Opportunity Study Guidelines, and guidance also for dealing between agricultural producers and the tourism sector, along with John Mitchell and Caroline Ashley and others. I can send you these. I can post the link to Anis, who can share with everybody as well. But part of the process made sure that you were talking to the producers, the people that were farming, and also to farming associations and to local governments as part of that process, to try and understand what blockages there were in the system, in whether it's the quality of the products that they were creating, their distribution, their storage. They're actually discussing with the tourism sector how they actually get it to them, and then also talking with the private sector as well about what challenges they had in buying from smaller producers, whether it was economies of scale and having to deal with like 50 different farmers instead of just one intermediary. So if you're coming from a top-down approach of like somebody wants to do this, is just make sure that your consultation is very, very thorough, and that it's not token at the producer level, but you actually have meaningful conversations to really understand. And that might be working in different languages with local translators, collecting the data, and really, and going back to people there and telling them what you found out and what your conclusions were, and just ground truthing those before you start putting money into an intervention. But if you get all that homework and research done from the early stages and make sure it's a really, inclusive process and well consulted, then what you actually implement is much more likely to succeed and not just be, a 3-year project intervention that then folds at the end of it. What you want is after the intervention for it to carry on and on, because it makes good business sense for producers and the tourism sector. I hope that helps. But yeah, I'll post the link to the ITC guidelines if people don't already have them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thank you, Christian, for your question, and then thank you for Dr. Stanley for the answers. I think we have the last question from the chat box from Fahri. He's from the STC. It's an honor to engage with you with your insight today. I have questions. How can tourism business balance short-term economic pressure with long-term regenerative goals? That's the question from Fahri.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a big question. Well, I'm hoping that businesses will have not only short-term goals, but also long-term goals within their business plans and with their sustainability plans. And when they've got short-term economic pressures that they have to deal with, they probably will take priority. But I think it's businesses increasingly realizing that they need to operate sustainably within the regulatory environments of different regions and countries, because customers are demanding a more responsible approaches, and they want to travel to those places that are acting well. Host communities get really annoyed if they're being exploited by tourism companies or by visitors, which can just destroy the tourism sector completely anyway. So I think the business of businesses is making sure that they can still continue work tomorrow, and that includes making things better in destinations and not worse. I'd be interested to hear what you think, Fatri, though, and particularly from your insights in the GSDC and things happening there now.
Yep. Yes, I think that because of the have to end these sessions. Thank you all for your active participation, and special thanks to Dr.
And thank you all very much indeed. It was a nice discussion. Thank you.
Together and to remember the sessions. Operators, are you ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, once more. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so if you still have any questions, you may send them directly to Dr. Spence's email. Dr. Spence, would you mind to sharing your email address with the participant? Sure. Okay. What's your email? Maybe we can you can share with the participant. Okay. So Dr. Spence has been
I put them in the chat.
yes, the chat box. So you can, if you still have any question or you want to engage with Dr. Spenceley, you may drop your question on your email of Dr. Spence. Once again, thank you everyone for being part for today's sessions. We hope you found it valuable, and we look forward to seeing you in the upcoming sessions. If you have any further thoughts or would you like to connect, please feel free to, and don't hesitate to reach out. Wishing you all have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, Dr. Spenceley. Thank you everyone for participation. And after this, we have another session, a second session. And then I give back the floor to the MC of Master of Ceremony. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Anna Spencer.
Thank you. Thank you to our moderator and keynote speakers. It's all on wonderful topic, and I hope we all can learn about it. Then, before the first session, and then before we end first session, let us take the documentation first, okay? And I hope all the participants can turn on their cameras. I will count in 3, 2, 1. Okay, prepare your smile and 1, 2, 3. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have completed the first academic session. Now we will take a short break before resuming the next session. I would like to remind you guys to feel full your I will remind you guys as a participant, don't forget to fill the attendance that isn't in chat box. So guys, we will see you again in 50 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We will proceed to the second session. Without further ado, let me introduce our second moderator, Mrs. Renata. Mrs. Renata is a full-time lecturer in the Department of Public Administration at Universitas Diponegoro. Mrs. Renata holds a master's degree in management and public policy from Universitas. As well as a bachelor degree in public administration from Universitas Erlangga. She is also active in various research and consulting projects. Without further ado, let us welcome Mrs. Renata Jati Nirmala. How are you, Mrs. Jati?
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm fine.
Hello, how are you today? Hello, Mrs. Renata.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hi.
how is your preparation to be our moderator today?
Sorry. Could you repeat your sentences?
Is my voice audible?
Yeah, I can hear your voice.
Okay, maybe without further ado, I will give the screen for you, Mrs. Renata, as a moderator, okay? The screen is
Okay,
yours.
thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's a truly honor for us to have such a distinguished speaker joining us today. So after this, we are going to listen and see about the presentation from Dr. Jessica Aquino from Hollar University. And allow me to briefly introduce our speaker. So we have here Dr. Jessica Aquino is a lecturer and researcher at Hollar University, and her academic contribution span across tourism, culture, community development, and also the environmental sustainability. Some of her most cited work including tourism, culture, and creative industry, volunteer tourist perception of their impact on marginalized community, and also a responsible framework for managing wildlife watching tourism, the case of seal watching on island. Her research has made significant impact in the field of business, management and accounting, environmental science, social science, economics, psychology, art, and planetary science. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Jessica Aquino to deliver her presentation on regenerative tourism, community and regional development. Dr. Jessica, the screen is yours.
Hello, thank you. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Hi, Dr. Jessica.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet you, Ms. Renata, and thank you so much for the nice introduction. I'm going to, I guess, just go ahead and share my screen and see if it works. Let's see. Are you able to share? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
So I just need to see. Okay, so let me just move this a bit so I can see my screen, and it's okay. So you can see my presentation. Thank you. All right. So thank you again. Thank you for inviting me for this guest speaker. And it's about 8 o'clock here in Iceland. And I live in the north of Iceland. So that's about 3 hours to the north away from Reykjavik, which is the capital of Iceland. So thank you so much for inviting me. So just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I know that Ms. Renata had given me such a wonderful background, but my name is Jessica Aquino. My background is in community development, and today I'm going to talk to you about what my profession is and what's the process and practice of community development. I'm an associate professor at Poland University, which is actually further north from here. It's about 2 hours from my community. So in total, that's about 5 hours away from Reykjavik. And I like to kind of give the distinction about the length of where we are located, because Iceland is, although it's a small island, it has lots of land. We're very few people, but we're spread out through all of Iceland. The majority, about 2/3 of the people, live in the south in Reykjavik, and the rest live in the countryside, such as myself. So I have worked on the Nordic Regenerative Tourism project since 2022, and that's when I first was introduced to regenerative tourism. I also helped start a local nonprofit youth organization called Hunuklubburinn. We started this in 2016 when I first arrived to Iceland. Being a community developer, one of the first things I wanted to do was to see what we had here in the community, and talking to several people, and one of the things we discovered was that although in Iceland they're very good at providing sports and leisure activities after school, there wasn't really any social programs. So we started an outdoor youth club in 2016, and ever since then it kind of grew into a local nonprofit. So we focus on active engagement of youth and community youth development. So today I'll talk to you about what community development is and kind of give you some distinctions between the difference between what community is, what development is, and then I'll describe to you the process that we use through community development and try to link that towards regional development and also regenerative tourism. And I'll give you an example from here in Iceland. So what is community development? I hope that you can use your phones and click on the Slido. If you use your phone and just click on the camera, it'll open up to the website that we're going to use to get some ideas about what you think community is. So if you use your phone, you'll see up on the right-hand side how many people are logging in. Hopefully this will work. If not, we can continue on. But this is something that we've used here in the Nordic areas to be able to interact with our audience a little bit more. But write one word. What does community mean to you? And let's see what we get. Okay, so our first few people are starting to type, and feel free to use, you can re-enter some words. So we have traditions, collaboration, hope, warm, values, people, empowering, connection, identity, understanding, culture, teamwork, networking, togetherness. Ooh, so more people are seeing togetherness as part of community, common goal, okay, so far 13 people have participated. Okay, so this is the, oh, we have one more, so we'll wait. Please, I see that there's about nearly 100 people online, so it would be good to see as many participants as possible if they're able to participate. Gathering is another, it's another word that's coming up more often. Okay, so you can see that people feel, for them, what community means is togetherness, gathering, empower, connection, community, identity, teamwork, value, hope, group. So you can see that people are part of the community, for how you're feeling that people are part of the community. Okay, so thank you so much. So we're going to continue. actually. I'd like to see if I can take a screenshot. Let's see. That way, when I send my slides, we'll have the results here. Okay. So from a community development standpoint, we look at community of locality. So this is geographical community. For example, in Vestra, we're in the northwest of Iceland. It is about 3,000, a little over than 3,000 kilometers squared, but we have about 1,200 people that live here. So it's a very large geographical area, but with not very many people. And we're spread out through the municipality, and half of the population lives on farms. But this would be considered a community of locality. A community of identity, this is also a cultural group, and communities of interest, which is regenerative tourism. However, this is also shifting as community development also includes community of nature. So this is local wildlife is considered as well community. So for many, we think about community, we think about our town, our neighborhood, and how we feel about living there. So community is connected by people and also nature. It's important within community development to have everyone actively engaged in their community because it combats social isolation and increases general well-being, both individually and for the community. So community practitioners commonly use these three different types of community within their work. So again, now I'd like to see what you, to write one word, what does development mean to you? Wealth, education, hope and prosperity, improvement, self-growth, safer, progress, program, progress and positive change. We have growth so far as coming up. Effort, impact, living conditions, enhancement, expansion, upgrading, changes, mindset. This is very interesting to see. Best version, addition and provision, okay. I'll take another screenshot of this so we can add it to the we can add it to our results. So when I send slides, you'll see them there. Okay, so this is very interesting to see that we have improvement, mindset, progress. Please feel free to add in more while I'm speaking. Safer, prosperity, impact, inclusivity, that's very good as well. Wealth, program, movement. So we can see that for development for you can also mean self-growth. So things that are helping to yourself and also to the local or the local surrounding. living conditions, best version. And I'd like to say that this is all very good definitions of what development means to you. Within the tourism industry, unfortunately, the concept of development continues to be Eurocentric and capitalistic. We see this as in the tourism status quo, where measuring tourism development is still measured in numbers rather than by community, as we saw with how you guys were describing community for you. We are starting to see a paradigm shift in the way we comprehend development, in particular within the regenerative paradigm. We need to reflect more on what development means from a community and regional perspective. So, my next question is, what would development look like from a community perspective? Okay, so this is our last slide for Slido. So go ahead and use one word. Describe what community development is. This might be a little bit more challenging if trying to combine the two that you were showing me today with community and development. So we have improvement, inclusivity, equal opportunities, and equitable distribution empowerment. Yep, goals, growth of people, empowerment, teamwork, networking, happiness, community awareness, same purpose, so a combined purpose, conservation, yes, networking, herd, so community in that sense, sustainability, mainstreaming, okay, so this is very interesting to see as well. Sustainability is the first time that came up between the other two questions, which is good to see this, the sustainability is also part of community development. We have empowerment, freedom, equal opportunity, equitable distribution, improvement, community awareness, growth of people. So thank you so much. I'm going to again take a screenshot of this and add it to our results. Okay. So what is community development? So the concept of community development has a strong emphasis on equality with a focus on building and sharing capacity for improvement in a community. So the development here is seen as building and sharing capacity that leads to social movement and change, improvements in a community and the environment, and equality inclusion. So here development is seen with these three main things: sharing capacity, social movement and change, and equality and inclusion. It was good to see some of those in the definitions that you were giving. So what is community development? Again, creating community development also has emphasis creating caring communities focusing on equality. So equality is also seen both social and ecological equality, and in interventions that help share capacity for improvements within a community. So community development is seen as a process, practice, and principles. So the process of community development is community-oriented process that leads towards social movement. So we need to have a social movement towards the embetterment of the community. It's also the ability to mobilize, and it's often described as social capacity. So this is a collection of skills of which members of a community can work together effectively. Networks, knowledge, resources, organization, and governance. So social capacity is seen as sharing those skills amongst the people within the community. And that way they're more effective in community work and to be able to mobilize towards the goals that they want to see. So the practice of community development is actively collectively through capacity sharing. So this capacity sharing is learning, networks, and mobilization. So we need to learn together to be able to learn how to work together, but also to learn about the different experiences that people within our communities have lived. This also helps create our networks, and the more networked you are within your community, the more well-being you feel within your community and the more active you feel within your community. That's why projects that are inclusive of community members are very effective for mobilizations. And I'll give you an example on the next slide. The principles of community development is participant democracy, social and environmental justice, sustainable development, economic opportunity, inequality. And the principles means that within the work that we do, we focus on these principles. So the work that we do must always have equality, and we strive for economic opportunity within the community, and also, of course, sustainable development, social environmental justice. So an example that I have from the nonprofit here at Menghadirkan was a Back to the Roots project. So this was a youth exchange project between Finland and Menghadirkan, Iceland. The learning was where youth work to learn was what we learned was what we wanted to know about what is youth work and community work. That was very new to us in the beginning. So the network was also experiences that create roots at home, because oftentimes youth in Nordic countries, particularly in the countryside, once they graduate elementary school, which here is they graduate in the 10th grade and are about 15 years old, turning 16, they go to high school if they want to go to high school. They also they have that the high school is away from the community. So that means by the age of 16, they're moving to the high schools and they're living there, or families within the communities will move with their adolescent to be able to live near where the school is. So for example, here in Menghadirkan, the closest school would be in Söderkröker, which is about 2 hours away, or Borgarnes, which is Söderkröker is to the north and Borgarnes is to the south. So mobilization for this project was supporting youth in civic engagement. But through this mobilization and participation, youth were learning how their own skills to become active participants within civic development or community development, and also further experiencing their community and setting down roots. So the philosophy was that the more connected they felt to the community, the more active they felt in the community, that once they go off to school, that they had the support system if they want to come back after they finish their schooling or training, to come back to their communities in Menghadirkan in this case. So the outcomes was creation of a youth worker position in Menghadirkan. We didn't have a youth worker before this project, and this project came up with through the youth. They saw how that in Finland, many communities have a youth worker, and this youth worker is the person that helps or advocates for the youth and to get them more actively engaged in the community. So what we've done is with this project is that we created a capacity sharing agreement between Finland and Menghadirkan. We're still working on that, but we are currently have at least a capacity sharing agreement between Menghadirkan, which is the local nonprofit, and the local municipality. So the next step will be the capacity sharing agreement between Finland and Iceland, between our two communities. So actions in community development is practice and process of community development, provides social support, community engagement, action, and contributions to well-being. So often what we use within our practice is community action-based research. So these are community projects that look at a research question, but that research question is developed within the community. So this is actively engaging the communities. So for the example with Back to the Roots, the first project idea was just to have youth active in this project, to give them a space, a place where they can share ideas and their experiences. And from that, we developed a research question to discover what is youth work and how does youth work help support youth within their communities. And just giving them that space allowed for them to decide that they wanted a youth worker here in Hunithingvesta in Iceland. So community well-being is defined as encompassing the individual, social, and ecological well-being in communities. And this is very important because oftentimes when we think about social or communities, we often only associate to the social part, but ecological well-being is also very important with communities. Community developers believe that interactions and opportunities for active participation within communities make communities and people more resilient to negative impacts. And of course, it creates stronger networks and leads to overall better well-being. So a website that I wanted to show you that I thought was very interesting was this, that community developers use different types of tools. And through my research for this presentation, I found that the government of New Zealand, their internal affairs, has a wonderful website that has resources that are typically used within our community development. So these different tools for community development looks at capital and asset-based community development. And here, if you click on the link, you can actually see the different types of the tools that we use. So it's really, a community developer needs to have many different types of toolbox because each situation is different, and also depending on the type of culture or community that you're working within, it can be useful to see different ways of approaching a problem or a research question. So for example, we have several, you just click on this one, the asset-based community development. This is one of the first tools that I learned as a student in the university. And this helps to look at what is the different assets that people have, that we have together in the community. And oftentimes people will say, oh, the schools or the grocery store, but once you start mapping it out and discovering why that's important to the community, then you discover what is it really the heart of the community, what is it that the community wants to protect or really proud of. And sometimes, especially what I've experienced working here in Iceland and in the countryside, is that people often feel like, oh, we live in the countryside. It's not as fancy as the things in the south, especially with youth. They feel a little bit embarrassed that they live in the countryside. But once they start interacting with other youth and they start to see that they really do have many assets within their community and they themselves are assets, they start to develop a better sense of self and a better sense of connection to the community, but also a better sense of worth. And that is very important when we look at overall community well-being. Okay. So if you'd like, I can actually put the link in the chat so that if you guys would like to view it. I think I'll have to do it later because since I'm in presentation mode, I don't really see where the chat is. Oh, I think I found it. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay. So capacity sharing is development from a foundation of reciprocity, communication, and collaboration, and involves multi-directional knowledge exchange. And this is between partners. So researchers often see that they're working with communities, but they're kind of almost seen as working on top of communities. So they're seen at a higher level because they have higher education. They're seen as the ones that are most knowledgeable. But capacity sharing and community action-based research views that researchers and communities are at the equal level. So communities have their own knowledge and their own autonomy to be able to share and are at the equal level as researchers. So that's why the research is always conducted within the community based off of the community desires. And the researchers' work is more about, because their skills are more in getting that mobilized, is to work with the communities to start that mobilizing actions towards the development that they want. So for example, a project that I was recently working on, and it's the reason why I was away. Yesterday, or this week, I was down in Reykjavik, about 3 hours from where I live. We had a regenerative tourism workshop. So a little bit of this project is one to help support an early career researcher. She's a PhD student. But also to help support local communities that want to learn more about what regenerative tourism is. We chose a workshop fashion because that way we ourselves as researchers are learning about what the community knows of regenerative tourism and what they want from it. And so together we created an idea of what actions that the community wanted to work towards with regenerative tourism, if it's just something like another form of greenwashing, or if it's something that they really feel that would work within their businesses or within their communities. And we're trying to make these workshops in 4 different areas within Iceland. So again, the majority of the people live in the south in the Reykjavik region, but the rest of the community lives along the Icelandic countryside. So we're trying to place at least one in Reykjavik and then one further north to the northwest where we're in Hvammstangi. And then the next month we have another researcher that's coming to visit here in Iceland, and we're moving to further north to Hólar University, and then again further north to University of Akureyri. So that way we're able to connect more with the local communities, and that these opportunities to discuss what is regenerative tourism and what it means to them in the community has more opportunities along the rest of Iceland. And again, that's just a little portion of Iceland because we're still missing the east fjords in Eyjafjallajökull and further south. So if you know Iceland, which I'll show you a map, Iceland uses this ring 1, and from where I live to the furthest point on the ring 1 to the south is about 8 hours. So it can be quite a distance. And oftentimes people don't receive these opportunities in the countryside because, again, the majority of people live in the south, such as researchers, or like if you need to go to a doctor, like the specialists all live in the south. There's a few that live in Akureyri. You can go there, but you can see how the resources are not fairly distributed in that way. Okay, so I was hoping that we could maybe take just a 10-minute break, so that way we can maybe have a comfort break if you need some coffee or tea. And when I come back, I would, if you guys have some questions, I'll answer some questions, and then we'll move on to the next part of my presentation. I hope, Mr. Nata, that's okay if we take a quick 10-minute break.
Yeah, it's okay, Dr. Jessica. So we will have 10 minutes break, and then we will get back later 10 minutes and ready for Q&A before you start presenting again, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's break.
we just have one more minute before we need to come back. So we'll just wait for people to slowly come back. Hopefully they have their tea and coffee ready.
Okay, so after this, you're going to open for Q&A and end your presentation, or you want to open Q&A and continue your presentation?
Yeah, I wanted to see if there's any questions first before I continue on, because we still need to talk about regional development and then regenerative tourism. Yeah. So
okay, great. Okay.
Yeah. So is there, do we have any questions so far?
Okay, let me ask the audience. So, are we have any questions from our audience today? Oh, okay, Mr. Fahri.
Hello, Dr. Aquino. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes,
can.
we can. Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can hear you clearly.
All right, great. I'm Fahri from ESTC. So I was interested to, firstly, I thank you for this opportunity to have me in this program. And I have a question for you. In your experience, what are the most effective ways to ensure that local communities are not just involved, but truly empowered in regenerative tourism initiatives?
Yeah, that's a great question. The work that I do, I think it's fairly easy to involve communities because I work in the communities that I live, and so I'm seen as a community member. Recently, we've been starting to work more in the regional capacity and working with other organizations that look at regional development and community development. We also work with local nonprofits, and those nonprofits typically work within the communities. An effective method that we've been doing is working with the local youth, because we feel that working with local youth helps them to become more skilled for resiliency and all the aspects that's going to happen within their life. But because they also have a vested interest in their community, they want to see it thrive, but they're not often asked to share their thoughts or to have an active participation. When we include the youth, we often see that there's more community members that want to be more engaged within the project. And because they see that support because they see themselves supporting the youth, but then they also get involved. So we start to see more of an intergenerational work within the projects that we focus on. Yeah.
Thank you for your response. But I think it's also related to the, let's say, the specific or the system or the structure of our community, right? Maybe I will share a little bit because I think in Indonesia we are mostly try to involve the elderly first, because they are, let's say, lead us in a proper way on a long time, and then after that we try to involve the youth or maybe the below generation before it. So maybe it's also unique as the various regional have, and I think that could be the one that we also need to consider. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But you're right, it does matter the cultural context. So here the youth are considered the center of the community. So it's much easier, at least from me, my perspective as being an immigrant to Iceland, that it was much easier to engage the youth because they're more open. And then the youth tend to go back to their homes and talk to their elders, and then describe the project that they're working on. And then we started to get more active engagement. So it may have been more of a method that I was using here, but it also comes from my own cultural background with engaging the youth, because in my own cultural background, the youth are the center. So I saw a similarity between the Icelandic culture and my culture.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other questions before I move on? Okay. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. And of course, we have the ending part of the presentation where we have more time for further discussion. So now I'd like to talk to you about what regional development is. So from a community perspective, it is the process of making regions more equitable, inclusive, and resilient through the collaboration to facilitate social, economic, and environmental improvement that underline the broader sustainable standards of living and quality of life. So again, regional development has this process, practice, and principles that are very similar to community development. So the process is regional-oriented process that leads towards equitable, inclusive, resilient regions through collaboration, socioeconomic and environmental improvement. So this leads to social capacity. So again, the practice is the group learning, the network, the mobility, and the principles are participant democracy. So often using place-based approaches. So looking at the community's culture and how we engage them, social and environmental justice, sustainable development, economic opportunity, and equality. So can you guess what regional level indicators would look like from a community perspective? Oftentimes when we look at tourism, again, they focus mainly on the numbers, how many visitors arrive, how much they're spending. But when we look at regional and community level indicators, we look at knowledge, skills, and learning. So again, is the community set up for capacity sharing? Who is willing to work within the communities and who's willing to share their knowledge? Community networks is extremely important because the more people there are that are actively engaged, the different views you'll be able to see, but also the different skills and the capacities that people have, they're more willing to share. There's also people-place connections because as we work within projects that are community focused, people feel a better sense of place and they feel more valued within their community. The community infrastructure, we mainly look at services and facilities. So places such as community centers or youth centers, schools, cafes, libraries. These are very important infrastructures when we look at where people share their ideas or where people gather. Diverse and innovative economy. So when we look at tourism, we don't want to see that the main emphasis is just tourism, because as we've seen with COVID and other factors, the tourism can be kind of a volatile economic base to focus on. Plus, if you think about with community and regional development, cool places to live or cool places to visit. So we need to focus on innovative and diverse economic scenarios within different parts of the community and region, because that allows for more resiliency. Also, an engaged governance. How often are the municipalities working with the local communities? How often are politicians or policymakers working with the communities to be able to get their voices heard and to really connect with people, but not just on a token level, actually fully engaged? So community well-being, and which again is looking at individual, social, and ecological well-being. Development should be seen as aligning human consciousness and actions within living system principles. Capacity sharing is an important aspect within community and regional development, and it is important to understand how information is co-created and shared within communities for a regenerative future. So community development plays a key role in regenerative tourism development, both at the local level and at the regional level, as a methodology because it outlines actions for community improvement. So what about sustainable development? I'm not going to focus too much on this because I know the first presenter had discussed a little bit about sustainable development and responsible tourism and sustainable tourism. And I wanted to just kind of briefly go over them just to connect it to how that is different from regenerative tourism. So sustainable development, according to Greg's, is development that meets the needs of the present while safeguarding the Earth's life support system on which the welfare of current and future generation depends. He focuses on Earth's life support system, society, and economy. From there, whereas Fennell and Cooper define sustainable tourism as tourism, which is development, and maintained in an area in such a manner and at such a scale that it remains viable over an infinite period while safeguarding the Earth's life support system on which the welfare of current and generation depends. So from here, I would like to read you a passage from Kimmerer's article, and as I think she describes a story that I think will help us further reflect on the concept of sustainable development. So Carol Crow, an Algonquin ecologist, tells the story of explaining to one of her elders that she was traveling to a conference about sustainable development. The term was not familiar to him, so she explained that the notion of managing resources in such a way that future generations would be able to obtain the same ecosystem services that are provided today without impairment to the land. He was quiet for a time. The idea was hardly new to him. He then asked her to carry a message to the conference. He said, "This idea of sustainability sounds to me like the same old formula by which people simply continue to take from the earth. They just want to keep taking. You can't just take. Tell them that among our people, our concern is not what can we take from the land, but what can we give." So Kimmerer describes what reciprocity is, which is the practice of exchanging things with others for mutual benefit. Responsibilities to more than human world are simultaneously material and spiritual, and in fact, the two are inseparable. Ecological restoration can be viewed as an act of reciprocity, where humans exercise their caregiving responsibility for ecosystems. So, based on indigenous stewardship principles, what we do to the land, we do to ourselves. Restoration of land and culture are inseparable, since land and humans are inseparable. So, in tourism studies, often we again focus just on the economic benefit of tourism and the development side, as in buildings or infrastructure for tourism. But we have separated ourselves from the land. And it's inseparable, as we are seeing with climate change and also the effect that it has on communities. So then what is regenerative tourism? Regenerative tourism understands that visitors and destinations are part of a living system embedded in the natural environment and operate under nature's rules and principles. The concept acknowledges the interconnectedness of various natural and social environments and is designed to give back to the land and the people. The issue that we're seeing, because since it's so new, is to understand how do we make tourism just that? How do we make tourism reciprocal? How do we engage the visitors to give back to the land that they're coming to visit? So Diane Dredge says that regenerative tourism needs a deeply engaged bottom-up approach that is place-based, community-centered, and environment-focused. Based on the research that we've been doing with Norway, we have seen a lot of examples from deeply engaged bottom-up approaches, mainly coming from entrepreneurs, DMOs, and also other community and regional development organizations. However, at the end of the project, at least from my research, I'm starting to see more of a connection that we need to really engage the top-down, because bottom-up, we're creating this movement, but top-down is where we're creating policies. So where do the two emerge? And that is a question that we have yet to answer. Maybe, hopefully, through your studies and in the future, you're able to answer this. So I wanted to show you the difference between community development and how it relates to regenerative tourism. Again, I like to use this process, practice, and principles because I feel that regenerative tourism and community development and regional development is more action. It's research, it's engaging actively with people through learning networks and mobilization. It's through principles looking at participant democracy, social and environmental justice. It's all of that, and it's interconnected. If it doesn't have action for mobility to make an actual meaningful change, then it's not regenerative tourism and it's not community development. That's why I like to put the two together, because I see that there's a connection to the two. Through my work with community development and seeing how communities mobilize themselves for the betterment of the community, I'm starting to see that with the regenerative tourism within the Nordic perspective, at least from the Nordic countryside perspective, because much of the work that we've done with Nordic regenerative tourism or Norwich has been coming from the countryside of the Nordic countries, where there is more of it, where the businesses are more connected to the community. So I'd like to give you an example here in Iceland. We did a citizen science pilot project in Snæfellsnes between 2023 and 2024. The main emphasis was to see if if we could connect this, if citizen science can be used for regenerative tourism, and what that would look like. So you may not know, some of you may know that we have two breeding species in Iceland. There's the harbor seal, which is the top, and the gray seal, which is at the bottom. The harbor seal is what mainly people see that are closer to land, and the gray seal are the ones that like to hang out further from the land. So the project looked at monitoring to understand population and visitor disturbance, but also to create education and awareness for the local people, including visitors. So the methodological development that we used was looking at community and regional development towards regenerative tourism, because we felt that it acknowledges that tourism occurs in local people's homes. We also see the need for capacity sharing, that it in a way is reciprocal, because the communities are also learning about disturbance, and also the awareness of the breeding seals here in Iceland. And because I didn't mention that a harbor seal is endangered and the gray seal is considered vulnerable in Iceland. The regional tourism development that leads to this type leads to empowerment, social and environmental justice of local areas. So again, Iceland is quite big. This heart here is where I live. This is in Unitin Vestre. I live in Hvammstangi. Hvammstangi is a village or a town of a little over 600 people. And we went here to Ytretunga, which is in the south. It's in the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. There's about 5 municipalities that are within this peninsula. So again, when we work with large regional areas within the communities. So the methodological development, we divided it in 3 phases. So the pre-phase, data collection phase, and dissemination and follow-up phase. So in our pre-phase, we needed to look into what do we have. So we did a community assessment, an inventory of assets. So we looked at connecting people together, the landowners, the schools, the scientists, visitors, park rangers, storytellers, business owners, staff at the information center, organizations such as the Youth for Arctic Nature Project, the Icelandic Seal Center, which is both a research center and a museum, and the Norreg project at this time. So what do we want? So that's the first thing that we established when we had a meeting, was a vision that guides us. We need this vision that everybody agreed with. And this also should consider ethics and values within the community, because oftentimes with tourism, because it's international, the ethics and values may be different from that of the visitors that are coming to visit. So with such a big project, you need many, many actors. And so we tried to engage as many people that we could within the peninsula. This was the first time that we're looking at such a large area, such as Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Again, it has several municipalities, but we engaged several actors such as small and micro-sized organizations, regional development management organizations, the other Nordic Regenerative Tourism team, and other partners were also contacted. It was really important that we engaged with the schools, because much of the educational materials that we were developing were meant for the general public, but we wanted to make sure that this was also benefiting the schools, because they had stated that they wanted some more education on environmental impacts, because that's part of their curriculum in the area in Snæfellsnes. So we had several researchers that worked together, and as you can see on the left-hand side, there were several different organizations that worked collaboratively together. So the coordination of the project can be kind of complicated, but with good organizational skills and sharing the workload, it becomes a bit more manageable. So this is how we put it into practice. So how do we get there? We outlined the steps that are needed to set goals and actions. So we did some action setting. We met several times within the community. To make it accessible, we did it online. So that way people that were at the farthest part of the peninsula were able to still meet, and also to help, because half of the researchers were located in the northwest of Iceland. So again, going from Hvammstangi to Ytretunga, it takes about 2 hours. So what we have done and what do we need to do now? So reflections, we created reflections on each time that we met of what we have done and why it's important. It helps to celebrate milestones and helps to monitor any issues that may need adjustment. Community projects may feel really, really slow, and they can feel very, very frustrating because people often have this perspective that things happen quickly and they don't. Change is slow. And when the coordination with so many people, it is also very slow. But it's just like slow cooking your food. It's more flavorful and it's more lasting feeling. So it's the same with kind of slowly working with your community. The more interactions, the more time that you give, the more feedback that you get, the more reflections that you get, creates better networks and more connections. So I talked about ethics in my other slides. So in community development, we look at values and ethics based practice, right? So these ethics are from Clark and Crickley, and Vincent talks about selflessness, treating people equally, integrity, objectivity, accountability, and honesty. There should also be transparency, duty of care, and ethics of care. I highlighted that because it's an aspect that we use often within our work, especially when we work, because we work with the local environment and cultural context. Respect, trust, compliance, and autonomy. So the community development practice values, again, what I said, different cultures may emphasize different values, and this becomes important when we think about regenerative tourism, because what we may think is regenerative, we need to explain to the visitors that they are aware of how we would like them to behave in the environment or within the community. So, but with community development practice, we typically follow these set of core values: participation, sustainable development and environmental justice, equality and human rights, social and economic justice, people and empowerment and collectivity. And it was really good to see those words being used in the other slides when we talked about development and community development. So now we're in the data collection phase. So we enlisted nature scientists to collect the data and to do the monitoring. And this was based off of monitoring data that was already happening at the Icelandic Seal Center that they've been doing for the past, I think, 18 years. It's long term. But they've only been doing it at the local level within their community. So this was an opportunity to share the capacity from the local level to the regional level across Iceland. So they wanted to do research on seals, education, training to help inhabitants, people and guests to learn about seals, information for long-term monitoring, because we often focus on short-term, but we, like in our last presentation, Anna said that we also need to look at long-term monitoring, because when you set those goals longer in advance, you can kind of work backwards to see the steps that you need in the short term to reach the long-term goals. So it's more sustainable, more regenerative thinking more into the long term. So Ytri is a popular destination site known for its seals, for their seal watching. It includes signs and paths which are more developed that visitors can use. And visitors from the Hotel Snæfellsnes are often encouraged to visit the area here, in particular when we were recruiting visitors to do this monitoring project for us. So on the right-hand side, you see that there's a flyer and how we recruited visitors. What we wanted to do is more like to see how this would look if there was no intervention, in a sense that including the visitors. We just set up the monitoring project to see who or what type of visitors would be more willing to participate in the project. So again, we developed educational materials that were used for both the visitors, and they were translated to Icelandic to be able to be used for the local areas. We also included visitors such as schools. So when I say visitors in tourism, I mean them differently. So tourists typically are people that are coming for vacation. In Iceland, we typically think of tourists as being foreigners, and visitors can also include the local people, so local tourists. So when I say visitors, I'm also including school groups, local families that come and visit the area. So we felt that if we develop the monitoring protocols that would be useful for the community as well. So this is how we set up the site for the citizen science project about how to collect the data. You can see that it's about 1.6 kilometers in total, or about 1 mile in total for the collection site. And we also try to set up how to do it, kind of like a handbook about how to do seal watching. We also felt that this manner also helps with teaching visitors the proper behavior in the environment. So especially since in the bottom, the Icelandic Seal Center has already had like a protocol of how to behave in the environment. So be mindful, the seals are at home and we are observers, protect the seals from disturbance during seal monitoring. And then this was the data sheet that we asked visitors to use to collect the data. So now we're at the dissemination and follow-up phase. So results, I focused on the social aspects of how this affected communities rather than how the data was collected for the scientists. What we saw with just, I think we called it cold, just asking the visitors to participate in the wildlife monitoring was not effective. It was only effective to a specific group of visitors that take their time in the area, that really want to get to know the area and learn about the area. So in total, there was very, very few data that was received from visitors. And we kind of already knew that this may happen because this project takes about 2 hours and 30 minutes, anywhere between 1 and 4 hours. And it's also dependent on low tide, because during low tide, that's when the seals like to beach on the areas or come up from the water and lay out. And especially in the Icelandic summer, not the sun is always shining, but it's always light. So it's it can be anywhere. Seal monitoring can happen anytime at 2 in the morning to 6 in the morning, 10 o'clock at night. So it just depends on the tide. So again, the majority of visitors were adults, and they're the ones that were very much into wildlife watching, but with a connection to cultural aspects. What we saw within the community is that the most of the research that was turned in were people from the community, especially school groups, and we had follow-up interviews within the local communities where the schools said that they were very happy to see educational materials that describes how we behave in the environment, because that helped pass that on to the youth. But they also saw a way of doing science work and how that's important. So it created great curriculum within the community. It also helped spread the awareness within the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. So there is a potential partnering with the Great Seal Count. This is with the Icelandic Seal Center in Hunithin Vestra, to try to have the seal counting in other areas. But the two known seal watching spots, there's actually 3, but the 2 biggest ones are in Hunithin Vestra in the Vatnes Peninsula, and also in Ytri-Tunga, which is in the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. So the project partners enjoyed working on the project because we created a network for them. They got to meet other people within the community. They felt more connected to the community. I'm sorry?
Sorry, 1
Yes.
minute left.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yes. So,
Okay.
yes, so I'm almost done. So there was a connection to the schools with learning. So I've already talked about, so what's next? We want to continue working with storytellers, rangers, and teachers, environmental education, and further collaborations with communities. How did we do it? Again, to summarize, we need to look at what do we have, what do we want, how do we get there, and what do we have done, and what do we need to know. So this is reflection, celebration of milestones, and monitoring. So in conclusion, community and regional development relies on inclusive community engagement and capacity sharing, should be approached using process, practice, and principles that focus on social, economic, and environmental well-being. Inclusion in policymaking is very important to be able to make sure that the policies that are being developed are equitable, and this leads to better policies. Directing actions and priorities for specific progresses to occur means that if we're working with communities, we're able to see which priorities need to happen. So thank you. So now I think we have about 30 minutes left for for questions. At least that's what I was told. My session was from 8 until 10 Icelandic time. Yes. Okay, good.
We still have like 15 minutes for Q&A session.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Jessica, for the enlightening presentation from you. It's really amazing about your research and about the experience that you already had before. And I really found one point that very interesting for me. You mentioned before that community development as an important perspective to explore, right? And from that, I understand that community development is not only about providing the external support, but also we try to seek the meaning of development from the community itself, so that people can empower themselves and actively engage with the development program. And then if we link this idea with the regenerative tourism, it seems that the community is not only the passive actors, but they also be the active actors, or even they are also the key actors that define about how tourism must regenerate with their social and also the cultural and natural environment. And it's really interesting for us to learn about the regenerative tourism today. And now we are moving to Q&A session. So if any of the audience have a question, please raise your hand or type your question on our chat box.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, is anyone have question? As we wait, I would like to ask you a question or some question. So, could you please share with us about your thought on how this approach could work in a practice, especially in the community that might lack of the motivation in the initial stage for doing community development? Do you have any idea how to boost their initiation to do community development?
Yeah. So what we've seen with community development is that we need to look for the people that are the change makers, the people that are already actively engaged in the community. Oftentimes, again, they're the ones that are very, very well networked. They have a interest in making the communities better, but they also have like this talent in doing so. So the only reason why the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, that project worked, was because we were working with the local change maker. So somebody that was working at the Snæfellsnes Regional Park. Because since I was from outside of the community, the people there didn't know me. So in working with a change maker who's very active within the community, it was much easier to be able to work with them. So that's why I think when we look at community development aspects, it's much easier to work within your own community because people know you and they know the work that you do. But when you're working outside of the community, then you need to work with somebody that's very active in their community and to make sure that your ethics and values align and that the goals align as well. And from there, then you can start the movement. So I don't want to sound like it's fairly simple. It's not. It takes a lot of work, a lot of heart. But as we've seen with community development, that oftentimes community development creates caring communities. We end up finding those people that really care about the community. They're really connected to the community and want to do good. And it's an opportunity to give that space to help mobilize the peoples that want to make their communities, to support their communities.
Okay, thank you. So it's really important for us to seek for the key actors on the community itself, right? To make a networking so the movement could come from within the community itself. That's really interesting. And we still open up for any question from the audience. If anyone have question? Oh, okay. Meiwa, would you like to open your mic?
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to ask, how does governance influence the success of community-oriented development processes? Thank you.
Thank you. Governance greatly influences the process of community development because it helps more equitable policy making. Governance, when we see, is more of like how people are actively engaged in the government and how the government is actively engaging the communities. So these are municipality workers, policymakers, politicians, community councils. All of this is considered governance. And when they're working with communities and hearing the dialogue, but actually participally working. So when I say working actively is creating a project, working with the community in sense of understanding what is the research question that they're after, what is it that they want to learn, and how do we put it in the place of the community where everybody's at the equal level, equal playing field. So oftentimes people within the government are seen again higher up, but trying to create a space where they're in an equal setting, and that takes a lot of dialogue, a lot of reflection. Yeah. Hopefully I answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's really interesting that we still collaborate with the government and placing them in the horizontal places as we are. And I think it's not the easy way or easy steps to do, yeah, because the governments tend to be the highest top of level management. And when we are talking about the community development, we have to place them as same as we are. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it can be fairly difficult because oftentimes through the tradition, we have placed them at a higher level and they're seeing it as a higher level, but we need to acknowledge our power that we have. So similarly, like with researchers, when people see that I have a PhD, they can be intimidated of me because, oh, she has a lot of education, when in reality I'm just as equal as everybody else. And so there is a process of working within communities that places people, everyone at an equal level. And that's the process that requires a bit of skill and reflection on how we've worked with communities before and how we worked with people in the government before.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Lenovo. Would you like to open your mic or camera? Okay.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Firstly, thanks for sharing all this information with us. I want to ask about how we can separate the concept of development from altering the nature of a region, especially when most society or community see that development are radical change and shift toward modern lifestyle. So how we can raise awarenesses in the community about that?
Yeah, I'm hoping that I understood the question right. That the idea of what development is still kind of like Eurocentric. That development leads to more of like changes within the culture, more of a modern culture or movement more towards, I guess, like what we considered the standards that we see within the European setting. You're right, there is a fear of that. Within the work that I've done, it takes a lot of my time explains a lot of my work when I work with communities and with the government. I explain what community development is and what regional development is, and then we also discuss the differences in views from a community perspective of what development should be. So I think just more awareness, but it can be difficult when the majority of people think that development means it's a radical change of cultural values and cultural lifestyle, and it's absolutely not. The development should be focused on social and economic or ecological well-being, and that to make the region more accessible and inclusive. Especially we see, so again, my examples come from the Nordic perspective here, looking at how the countryside can have more access to the things that we need. In Iceland, it's very the municipalities are are fairly well distributed in the sense that we all have a clinic. Many of our communities have a local grocery store. We have one in here in Huntington Investor, which is, again, it's depending on if you live at the farthest farm, it's about 2 hours still to get to, or no, I'm sorry, about an hour to get to the grocery store, which is still kind of far, but that's the local, or that's the closest that you have. But the resources and services are needed within the community. So when we look at development, we look at like, do we have a community center or a gathering place? Do we have a local library where we can exchange knowledge? Are the schools accessible for everybody who wants to get an education? And do they feel safe in those schools? So I think it's just more about dialogue, talking to people and explaining what development is. And then we realize, oh, this is actually very ingrained into my culture. I do want to be part of my community because as we are, to be part of a community, you have to be actively engaged in a community. And there are people that are very much wanting to be part of that community. It's a need for them. And so community development projects should engage the people that want to be very active and want to do good within their community. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the community development itself is not only about the science, but also the art of understanding, right, about the culture of the community. So we can fit in with the community to make a movement with them, together with them. It's really interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that it's an art, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
it very much is an art of working with communities.
Yeah. Okay. We still have time to question and answer session. So if our audience have any question, please raise your hand or type it on our chat section, please. And while we waiting, I would really like to ask about your experience in when you are doing your research. I really like to know, when you're doing your research, doing the community development, do you find about the dependency of the targeted community with the group that initiate about the movement?
Well, so that's interesting because when working with communities, when you start to do capacity sharing, that's why capacity sharing is very important within community development projects. Because when we start sharing our capacity, the skills of the individuals also are more developed. So, for example, I always use youth as an example because they're still learning. They're going to school. They want to learn how to be more actively engaged in their communities. So, policymakers or community developers that want to work with youth, we have to see it as a form of education and sharing, but also listening. So the youth have knowledge to share. So when things are more equitable, when the knowledge is shared, skills are better developed. And then when the project ends, those skills never go away. They're able to use those skills in different aspects within their lives. Plus, once you start doing community development projects, the community starts to learn more about what that is. It's easier to start to further. It kind of like creates this ripple effect, right? Because as the community capacity starts to increase, it makes it easier for them to mobilize and to make those changes. So it does start with a few small steps. It does take some time, but once you get established in that direction and that methodology, it makes a further development easier.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, we have a question from Dr. Shem. Dr. Shem, would you like?
Thank you very much, Jessica, for the great presentation. And I would just want to say that from the African experience, I'm a lecturer, a senior lecturer in the Department of Tourism in Kenya, and we have a lot of community-based tourism experiences. And from our experience, I think with working with communities, has been the issue of geopolitics and that actually also affecting our communities indirectly, right from the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the outbreak of the pandemic seriously affected communities' livelihoods and their well-being. The government of Kenya has been trying to look for ways of, regenerating tourism or developing tourism much more sustainably, much more to create the adaptive capacities of communities. We learned a lot from the pandemic. And even as we talk about regenerating tourism and really how it really affects communities, I think there are quite a lot of extraneous variables or extraneous factors that really affect the lives and livelihoods. And especially here in Africa, we have very high levels of poverty, people living below $1 a day, and that has a very negative effects. In your view, how can we deal with these extraneous factors that are really also affecting us here in Africa? I want to give an example of the kind of crisis we are seeing in countries like in Asia, in countries like Sri Lanka, in countries like Nepal, and it's also coming here in Africa, a new wave of Gen Zs that are really disrupting what we actually define as development here in African context. In your view, how can tourism practitioners really deal with this new wave of, new type of communities that are evolving from these, from this generation of Gen Zs? Yeah, so we need to talk about the can talk about gentrification of communities of tourism, of tourism experiences and tourism the tourism products. The other question is the issue of youth out migration. Youth out migration is a big challenge where the community, some members of communities actually migrate to other parts of Europe, in America, and this aspect of youth out migration is a major challenge here in Africa. Even as we talk about empowering our communities, we still have the existential threat of the effects of this youth out migration. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for the organizing committee for engaging us here.
Thank you so much for your comment. Your comment is quite complicated. I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain it in just a few short minutes that we have left of the session. But there's, you talked about systemic inequalities that we see within communities. There's a lot of power inequalities and also youth out migration. We have those. We in the Nordic countries, we have youth out migrations in the rural areas. The systemic inequalities is less often seen in Nordic communities, but we still see them with indigenous communities. In Iceland, we don't have indigenous communities, but the equality within the communities are still seen more equally. Although when we look at regional and services, you can see that there's an inequality there. So, for example, people that need to go to the specialists and Egilsstaðir, so that's the farthest point to the east of Iceland. Many of them have to take a plane, and to make it to Reykjavik to be able to go to the specialist. But the government does provide some form of discount for that. But again, it's never similar as having a specialist that lives in your community that you're able to see. So unfortunately, each country has its own level of issues and where they are with like systemic inequalities. Sometimes it makes the change makers or the people that are actively engaged in the communities more barriers. And oftentimes we see community developers, they're seen as activists because of the actions that we make, because we want to help mobilize communities to move forward. And when you look at communities that have higher levels of oppression, you'll see more of like they're considered more as activists. But that's what we need with to be able to combat systemic inequalities, is to mobilize communities to be able to push the government to make those changes. And again, change happens slowly, and people in power don't want to relinquish their power. This is something that we've talked, this experience throughout my life and throughout history, that we see the systemic inequalities. A lot of it has to do with historical and systemic inequalities and historical oppression. The outmigration is something, at least I can give you the Nordic perspective here. What we're seeing is that it's still affecting greatly the communities, because as youth move out of the communities, we're losing essentially an asset, because they typically tend to be very active in their communities. In a sense, they're going to school, they're entering the job market, they may hold several jobs, they're creating families. And in the Nordic countryside, it's very important that young families, or that young people start to have families, because then the community grows and we start to see less. It evens out the number of elderly versus the number of youth. If we have a higher number of elderly, then we see that the community is declining. But we have a higher number of children being born, and we usually see those numbers within the kindergartens. Then we start to see that the community is revitalizing or coming back. So the work that we're doing in the Nordic countries to help combat youth outmigration is to provide projects that civically or actively engage youth into innovation and into regional development, linking them with the knowledge that they need to enter into the job market, and linking them to skills, but also linking them networking, because as we all know, your networks also help you within the job market. So the people that you know, because as they know you, they know that you're also connected that way, that they will get you a job. So that's what we're trying to do with the youth. But not all places do that. Not all regional development organizations want to do that. Not all politicians want to work with youth. They don't see the value in that. And unfortunately, it does take a lot of activism to try to break that systemic injustice. So hopefully I can try to minimize it, put it in a nutshell.
Thank you for the excellent response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Desika. We really sad that we have to end our session here, but I'm really grateful for your coming today for our short course session, sharing about your experiences in your research, and also sharing about your knowledge about community development and also about the regenerative tourism. And I really like to thank to all the audience that already engaged and participate in this session. And I hope that from this session, we can get more inspired to learn about community development and also about the tourism. And now I would like to hand the session back to our Master of Ceremony. So please welcome our MC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, our amazing moderator and speaker. Then, before we end the last session, let us take a documentation. And again, I hope all participants can turn on their cameras. And I will count in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay still, everyone. 3, 2, 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's session of the Short Course Program 2025. And I would like to remind you all participants to fulfill the attendance form that has been shared in the Zoom chat by committee. And lastly, on behalf of organizing committee, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to our distinguished speakers, our moderator, participants, and everyone who has contributed to make this event possible. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and see you in the next session.
Thank you.